Welcome, welcome, my friend, to this special library and archive where we have some secrets to discover. So, you are looking for something. May I see what you have? Look at that. It's a map of Europe. L'Europe and states, empires, kingdoms and republics. We have Spain, Portugal, France, the Italian states, Austria-Hungary, Greece, Germany, Britain, the Low Countries, Denmark, Scandinavia, and Russia. The Ottoman Empire. What did you say? You're looking for something along the line. Not exactly a ley line. Right you are. Well, according to most of our studies, ley lines don't exist as such. At any rate, the explanation given has been shown to be quite contrived or too much inferred from the information that we have. But you've got some coordinates and a compass heading. So what you sent me earlier, I've pinpointed here to these islands in the Adriatic. They're very low islets just on the other side of the Gulf of Venice or the Adriatic Sea. And your heading is 286. Well, let's get our plotter, and we should be able to do this quite well. Now, as you can see, the longitude lines are curved. It's not a Mercator projection. So we've got to curve our north, so we'll have to, because we're covering such a large area, we'll have to guess about the north. And we'll put north about there. And let's set this one at 286 degrees. there is our point down here. And we've got just about pointing north there is this little spot in Brittany where you've given me the distance. This, I take it, is the mysterious and magical location about which you would like more information. As you can see, Brittany is a peninsula that is on France's northwest coast, jutting out into the Atlantic at the end of the English Channel. This little peninsula has the Channel Islands on its western side. This is the Cotentin that we can see there, Cotentin, and Saint-Malo and the border of Brittany, Mont Saint-Michel, and on the south coast we have Lorient and Quiberon. And what you've given me points to the very heart of Brittany. I think I have some things, some materials that will help you. Just the thing. Now I've got this map of Brittany where we can see all of its coastline, its rivers, its forests. Shall we have a look at that? There we have all of the coast and the westernmost promontories there, the rocky islands and outcrops, the cliffs, and the rugged north coast. We have the Emerald Coast and the coast of Armorica from the Armor tribes, the Celtic tribes that were there. You're looking for a forest. I think that if we go up this river, we can see that at the very corner of this river lies a forest, and that is just outside of the small town of Rennes. That is where we need to look. And you've come to the right place, because I can tell you that this forest that you have come to in your navigational calculations is called Brocéliande. A legendary enchanted forest in Brittany, though its exact location has been something of an uncertainty. Today it is largely accepted to be the Pimpon forest just outside of Rennes. And I think we can actually see the name on this old map. This forest of Pimpon covers roughly 50 square kilometers, and Brocéliande is contained within it, a forest that might be said to exist in the space between dream and reality, in the mystical land of Celts, Druids, and Stone Age megaliths. Legend has it that this forest is home to magical, violent storms. Morgan Le Fay's Vale of No Return, the Miroir aux Fées lake, and a fairy spring, the Fountain of Barenton, where the tomb of the great sorcerer Merlin lies, the living soul of Brocéliande. Each year, thousands of flowers, bracelets, and poems are placed on this mysterious tomb. The wanderer will also find the famous golden tree that drew medieval alchemists, the guillotine oak, which is over 1,000 years old, and the tree of Les Andres, 5 meters in diameter. Deep in the forest, there are giant moss-covered trees, twisted as if frozen in some inescapable, magical struggle, and the imagination is ignited. Every rock, every tree, and every lake and spring in this magical place wields a power over the imagination, and in the depths of the forest we can find Merlin's secrets. Brocéliande first appears in literature in the Roman de Roux. This is an Anglo-Norman chronicle about the Dukes of Normandy by Robert Wace, written about 1160. And here we have a piece from a 19th century edition of Wace. Let's see what he writes about Brocéliande. Le roman de Roux est des ducs de Normandie pour remembrer des ancêtres, les faits et les dits et les morts, des dans les livres et les gestes, et les histoires lire à feste, les félonies des félons et les barnages. The Duke rejoiced greatly at receiving the gonfanon and the license which the apostle gave him. He got together carpenters, smiths, and other workmen, so that great stir was seen at all the ports of Normandy, in the collecting of wood and materials, cutting of planks, framing of ships and boats, stretching sails and rearing masts, with great pains and at great cost. They spent all one summer and autumn in fitting up the fleet and collecting the forces, and there was no knight in the land, no good sergeant, usher, or peasant of stout heart, and age for battle, that the Duke did not summon to go with him to England, promising rents to the vavassors and honours to the barons. The Duke had men from many and various parts. Haman, the Viscount of Tours, came thither, a man of very great power, who could bring much people. Alain Felgin also came to the crossing, and brought with him great baronage from among the Bretons. And Fitz Bertrand, Le Pelay, and the Sire de Dinan came also, and Raoul de Gaël, and many Bretons from many castles, and from about Brocéliande, concerning which the Bretons tell many fables. Brocéliande being Brocéliande. It is a forest, long and broad, much famed throughout Brittany. The fountain of Berenton rises from beneath a stone there. Thither the hunters are used to repair in sultry weather, and drawing up water with their horns, they sprinkle the stone for the purpose of having rain, which is then wont to fall, they say, throughout the whole forest around. But why, I know not. There, too, fairies are to be seen, if the Bretons tell the truth, and many other wonders happen. The ground is broken and precipitous, and deer in plenty roam there. But the husbandmen have deserted it. I went thither on purpose to see these marvels. I saw the forest and the land, and I sought for the marvels, but I found none. I went like a fool, and so I came back. I sought after a folly, and hold myself a fool for my pains. So he's telling about the preparations for the Dukes of Normandy to follow William across the Channel to Angleterre or England. And here they are. You can see them building the ships that will carry them across. And Brittany itself has always been known as a place for brave and courageous knights. So if William was able to get the support of the Dukes of Brittany, he would be a very happy commander indeed. After Wace's history, this forest captured the imagination of medieval Europeans as a place of magic and mystery. Consequently, Brocéliande is mentioned in several medieval stories connected to Arthurian legend, featuring the figures of Merlin the Wizard, Morgan Le Fay, the Lady of the Lake, among some of the knights of the Round Table. It is also the forest in which Yvain begins his adventures by pouring water from a spring on a stone. That spring we just read about in Wace. This causes a great storm, which brings forth the knight Esclados le Roi to defend his land. This was written by Chrétien de Troyes in the latter part of the 12th century, just after Wace. I just happen to have a 1960 edition of Le Chevalier au Lion, or Yvain. It's quite a story. begins where all Arthurian legends do, at the court in Camelot. Artus Liban, roi de Bretagne, la qui presque nos enseigne, que nos soins preux et courtois, d'un corps si riche comme roi, à celle veste qui t'encoste, qu'en doit clamer la Pentecôte. Les rois furent accajoués en Galles, après manger, parmi ces salles, si chevaliers s'attropelleront, là où dames les appelleront, ou demoiselles ou pucelles, lit un racontoir nouvelle, les autres parleront d'amour, des angoisses et des douleurs. Would you like to keep this book to read about Yvain and the magical fountain at Brocéliande? There you go. Shall I read you some of the story of Yvain? Arthur, the good king of Britain, whose valour teaches us to be brave and courteous, held a court of truly royal splendour at that most costly feast known as Pentecost. The king was at Carlisle in Wales. After dining, the knights gathered in the halls at the invitation of ladies, damsels, or maidens. Some told of past adventures, others spoke of love, of the anguish and sorrows, but also of the great blessings often enjoyed by the disciples of its order, which in those days was sweet and flourishing. But today very few serve love. Nearly everyone has abandoned it, and love is greatly abased, because those who loved in bygone days were known to be courtly and valiant, and generous and honourable. Now love is reduced to empty pleasantries, since those who know nothing about it claim that they love, but they lie, and those who boast of loving and have no right to do so make a lie and a mockery of it. But let us look beyond those who are present among us, and speak now of those who were, for to my mind a courteous man, though dead, is more worthy than a living knave. Therefore it is my pleasure to tell something worthy to be heard about the king, whose fame was such that men still speak of him both near and far. And I agree wholly with the Bretons that this fame will last forever, and through him we can recall those good chosen knights who strove for honour. On that Pentecost of which I am speaking, the knights were very surprised to see the king arise early from the table. But that day it happened that the queen detained him, and he tarried so long at her side that he forgot himself and fell asleep. At the entrance to his chamber were Dardinel, and Sagremor, and Kay, and my lord Gawain. And my lord Yvain were there too, and with them was Calogrenant, a very handsome knight, who began telling them a tale, not of his honour, but of his disgrace. Calogrenant said, "Lend me your hearts and ears, for words that are not understood by the heart are lost completely. There are those who hear something without understanding it, yet praise it. They have only the faculty of hearing, since the heart does not comprehend it. The word comes to the ears like whistling wind, but doesn't stop or linger there. Instead, it quickly leaves if the heart is not alert enough to be ready to grasp it. However, if the heart can take and enclose and retain the word when it hears it, then the ears are the path and the channel through which the voice reaches the heart. And the voice, which enters through the ears, is received within the breast by the heart. So he who would hear me now must surrender heart and ears to me, for I do not wish to speak of a dream, or a fable, or a lie, which many others have served you. Instead, I shall tell what I have seen myself. It happened more than 7 years ago that I, alone like a peasant, was riding along in search of adventures, fully armed as a knight should be. I discovered a path to the right, leading through a thick forest. The way was very treacherous, full of thorns and briars. With considerable effort and difficulty, I kept to this course and this path. For nearly the whole day I rode along in this manner until I emerged from the forest, which was named Brocéliande. From the forest I entered into open country, where I saw a wooden brattice, half a Welsh league away. If it was that far, it was no further. I rode that way at a good pace, saw the brattice and a deep and wide moat all around, and on the drawbridge stood the man to whom the fortress belonged, with a molted goshawk upon his wrist. I had no sooner greeted him than he came to take hold of my stirrup and invited me to dismount. I had no inclination other than to do so, for I needed lodging, and he told me at once, more than 7 times in a row, that blessed was the route by which I had arrived therein. With that, we crossed the bridge and passed through the gate into the courtyard. In the middle of the Vavasour's courtyard, may God grant him as much joy and honour as he showed me that night, the Vavasour struck 3 blows upon this gong with a hammer that was hanging from a little post. Those inside, hearing the voices and this sound, came out of the house and down the courtyard. Some ran to my horse, which the good Vavasour was holding, and I saw that a fair and noble maiden was approaching me. I looked at her intently, for she was beautiful, tall, and proper. She was skilful in helping me disarm, which she did quickly and well. Then she dressed me in a short fur-lined mantle of peacock blue and scarlet. Then everyone left, and no one remained there, with me or with her. This pleased me, for I had eyes for no one else, and she led me to sit down in the most beautiful meadow in the world, enclosed round about with a small wall. There I found her to be so talented, so charming in speech, so gifted, so comforting, and of such a fine nature that I was very delighted to be there, and no duty could ever have caused me to leave. But that night the Vavasour laid siege to me by coming to fetch me when it was the time and the hour to sup. Since I could tarry no longer, I did his bidding at once. Of the supper, I'll tell you in short that it was entirely to my liking, since the maiden, who was in attendance, was seated opposite me. After dinner, the Vavasour told me that he couldn't recall how long it had been since he had given lodging to a knight-errant, riding in search of adventure. He had not lodged any in a long while. Then he besought me to accord him the service and recompense of returning by way of his lodging. I responded, "Willingly, sir," for it would have been a shame to refuse him. I would have seemed ungrateful had I refused my host this boon. That night I was lodged well, and my horse was saddled as soon as one could see the dawn. I had ardently requested it the evening before, and my request had been honoured. I commended my good host and his dear daughter to the Holy Spirit, and begged leave of everyone, and set off as soon as I could. It was not far from my lodging when I discovered in a clearing wild bulls on the loose, that were fighting among themselves and making such an uproar and commotion and disturbance that, if the truth be told you, I backed off a little way, for no beast is as fierce or more bellicose than a bull. A peasant who resembled a Moor, ugly and hideous in the extreme, such an ugly creature that he cannot be described in words, was seated on a stump, with a great club in his hand. I approached the peasant and saw that his head was larger than a nag's or other beast's. His hair was unkempt, and his bare forehead was more than 2 spans wide. His ears were as hairy and as huge as an elephant's, his eyebrows heavy, and his face flat. He had the eyes of an owl, and the nose of a cat, jowls split like a wolf's within the sharp reddish teeth of a boar. He had a russet beard, tangled moustache, and a chin down to his breast, and a long twisted spine with a hump. He was leaning on his club, and wore a most unusual cloak, made neither of wool nor linen. Instead, at his neck he had attached 2 pelts freshly skinned from 2 bulls, or 2 oxen. The peasant leapt to his feet as soon as he saw me approaching him. I didn't know if he wanted to strike me or what he intended to do, but I made ready to defend myself until I saw that he stood there perfectly still without moving. He had climbed up on a tree trunk, where he towered a good 17 feet high. He looked down at me without saying a word, no more than a beast would have, and I thought he didn't know how to talk and was mute. Nonetheless, I summoned enough nerve to say to him, "Come now, tell me if you are a good creature or not." And he answered, "I am a man." "What sort of man are you?" I asked. "Just as you see, and I'm never anything else." "What are you doing here?" "I stand here and watch over the beasts of the woods." "Watch over them?" "By St. Peter in Rome, they've never been tamed. I don't believe anyone can watch over wild beasts on the plain or in the woods, nor anywhere else, in any way, unless they are tied up and fenced in. I watch over these and herd them so they'll never leave this clearing." "How do you do it? Tell me truly." "There's not a one of them that dares move when it sees me coming. For whenever I catch hold of one, I grab it by its 2 horns with my tough and strong hands, so that the others tremble in fear and gather around me as if crying out for mercy. No one except me could have confidence among them, for he would be killed at once. Thus I am lord over my beasts. Now it's your turn to tell me what sort of man are you, and what you're seeking." "I am, as you see, a knight seeking what I cannot find. I've sought long, and yet find nothing." "And what do you wish to find?" "Adventure, to test my courage and strength. Now I pray and beseech you to advise me, if you know, of any adventure or marvellous thing." "In this," he replied, "you will surely fail. I know nothing of adventure, nor have I heard any talk of it. But should you wish to go to a spring near here, you will not return untested if you abide by the custom of the place. Nearby you will soon find a path that will take you there. Follow the path straight ahead, if you don't wish to waste your steps, for you could easily stray, there are many other paths. You will see the spring that boils and yet is colder than marble. It is shaded by the most beautiful tree that nature ever formed. Its leaves stay on in all seasons. It doesn't lose them in even the harshest winter. Also, there is an iron basin hanging on a chain that is just long enough to reach the spring. Beside the spring, you'll see a stone. I can't tell you what kind it is, as I've never seen any like it. And on the other side is a chapel, small but very beautiful. If you will take some of the water in the basin and cast it upon the stone, then you'll see such a storm come up that no beast will remain in this wood. Stags, does, deer, boar, and even birds will fly before it. There will be so much lightning that if you escape without great trouble and distress, you will be more fortunate than any knight who ever went there. I left the peasant as soon as he had shown me the way. It was probably after the hour of tierce, and might even have been near midday when I saw the tree and the spring. I know for a fact that the tree was the most beautiful pine that ever grew upon the earth. I don't believe it could ever rain so hard that a single drop could penetrate it. From the tree I saw the basin hanging, made of the purest gold that ever was sold at any fair. As for the spring, you can be assured that it was boiling like hot water. The stone was of emerald hollowed out like a cask, and it sat upon 4 rubies, brighter and redder than the morning sun when it first appears in the east. Everything I say is the truth, so far as I know it. I was eager to see the miracle of the storm and tempest, but this was unwise on my part, and had I been able, I would immediately have retracted my action, after sprinkling the hollow stone with the water from the basin. But I poured too much, I fear, because I then saw the heavens so rent apart that lightning blinded my eyes from more than 14 directions, and all the clouds pemmel-dropped rain, snow, and hail. The storm was so terrible and severe that 100 times I feared I'd be killed by the lightning that struck about me, or by the trees that were split apart. You can be sure that I was very frightened until the storm died down. But God brought me swift comfort, for the storm did not last long, and all the winds diminished. They dared not blow against God's will, and when I saw clear, pure air, I was filled again with joy. For joy, as I've come to learn, causes great troubles to be soon forgotten. As soon as the storm abated, I saw gathered upon the pine tree so many birds, believe it if you will, that not a leaf or branch could be found that was not completely covered with birds. The tree was more beautiful because of them, and they were singing softly, in perfect harmony. Yet each sang a different song, so that I never heard one sing what another was singing. I rejoiced in their joyousness, and I listened until they had completely finished their service. I had never heard such perfect joy, nor do I believe anyone would hear its equal unless he too goes there, to hear what pleased and delighted me so much that I was totally enraptured. I stayed there so long that I heard what sounded like a knight coming. Indeed, I thought there might be 10 of them, such a racket and clatter was made by a single knight who was approaching. When I saw him coming, all alone, I caught my horse at once, and did not delay in mounting. And he, as if with evil intent, flew at me swifter than an eagle, looking as fierce as a lion. In his loudest voice he began to challenge me, saying, "Vassal, you have greatly shamed and injured me by not offering a proper challenge. If you had just cause, you ought first to have challenged me, or at least claimed your rights, before bringing war against me. So now, if I can, Sir Vassal, I'll make you suffer punishment for the manifest damage you've done. The evidence is all around me, in my woods that have been felled. He who is injured has the right to lodge a complaint, and I do claim, and rightly so, that you have driven me from my house with lightning and rain. You have wronged me, and cursed be he who justifies it. For against my words and my castle you have levelled such an attack that great towers and high walls would have been to no avail for me. No man would have been safe in any fortress whatsoever, whether of timber or solid stone. But rest assured that from now on you'll have no truce or peace from me." At these words we clashed together. We held our shields on our arms, each covering himself with his own. The knight had a good horse, and a stiff lance, and was certainly a full head taller than I. Therefore I was in real trouble, because I was smaller than he, and his horse was better than mine. I am telling you the truth, you must understand, to explain the cause of my shame. I had dealt him the mightiest blow that I could, sparing him nothing, and struck the edge of his shield. All my strength was behind my blow, and my lance shattered to pieces. But his remained unbroken, since it was not light at all, but weighed more, I think, than the lance of any other knight. I'd never seen a thicker one, and the knight struck me such a blow that it knocked me over my horse's crupper and flat upon the ground. He left me shamed and defeated there, without glancing even once at me. Leaving me behind, he took my horse and started back along the path, and I, not knowing what to do, remained there, bewildered and dejected. I sat for a while beside the spring and waited. I didn't dare follow the knight for fear of doing something rash, and even had I dared to follow him, I didn't know what had become of him. Finally, I decided that I would keep my word to my host and return to him. This decision pleased me, so that's what I did. But first I removed all my armor in order to proceed more easily, and I returned in shame. When I reached his lodgings that night, I found my host quite unchanged, just as happy and as courteous as I had found him earlier. I did not in the least sense that either his daughter or he was any less happy to see me, or paid me any less honor than they had the night before. In their goodness, everyone in that house showed me great honor, and they said that never before had anyone escaped from where I had come, as far as they knew or had heard tell, but that everyone had been killed or captured. And so I went, and thus I returned. Upon returning, I considered myself a fool. Now, like a fool, I've told you what previously I've never wanted to tell. "By my head," said my Lord Yvain, "you are my first cousin, and we should love one another dearly. But I'd have to say you were a fool for having hidden this from me for so long. If I've called you a fool, I beg you not to be offended by this, for I'll go forth and avenge your shame if I can." "It's clear that it's after dinner," said Kay, who could not restrain his tongue. And so the knights and the queen discuss a trip to this castle. Arthur comes in, of course, and is much intrigued as Guinevere recounts the story to him. And they all mount up and ride to find this mysterious castle at the edge of the forest of Brocéliande, and the magical fountain within, and many more adventures happen. also have some more material for you that might help you on your trip. This one is the Michelin Guide to Brittany, or as we've seen in the Anglo-Norman and Old French Bretagne, not to be confused with Grande Bretagne or Great Britain. There are lots of maps here, and of course notes and little pieces from previous users of this guide. I'll set that aside for you as well. And historically, you've got the Chrétien, the Roman de Rue, the map of Brittany that we'll hold up, some images from the Bayeux Tapestry, and I thought I'd include this one as well. This book is called The Creation of Brittany, a Late Medieval State, and it is a collection of scholarly articles about Brittany and its birth as a duchy under Anne de Bretagne. Would you like to read that one as well? Alright. While I pack these up for you, I can tell you about the legacy of Brocéliande. Wace, who seems himself to have been caught up in the legends and myths surrounding this magical forest, influenced so many people throughout the ages to write stories and visit this place. In various works, from the 13th century Vulgate Histoire de Merlin to Tennyson's Merlin and Vivien idyll. In 1859, Brocéliande is a forest in which Vivien entraps Merlin. So we have a meeting of sorcerers and wizards, and trickery and magic. And even in 1917, Edwin Arlington Robinson wrote Merlin, about Merlin living for a time with Vivien in Brocéliande, describing it as an Elysian wilderness. So with all of this material, maps, history, legends, you can explore this deep forest, home to Merlin the Wizard's secrets. So I shall fold these maps and put them all together with yours, and we've got the history and maps and Roman de Rue. And then we've got Chrétien and your Michelin guide. Some boats and a lighthouse in Brittany. I'll hand you this bag. It's got handles so you can carry it. And now you have everything you need, my friend, to take a trip into the magical forest of Brocéliande. And as you go deeper, deeper in to the cool, mystical forest, with its cool springs and huge trees that have seen the years and ages come and go, you will float off in your imagination to a land of magic and calm and peace. Be good to yourself, be kind to others, and, as always, be extraordinary.